This week, it's one of my favorite segments, Security Money, where we update you on the latest security funding and performance of the entire security market. The Security Weekly 25 Index is still going strong. But first, we welcome Keavney, president at Cybersecurity Collaboration Forum, to discuss the benefits of CISO peer-to-peer networks. Business Security Weekly starts now.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we explore the business of security to improve the security of business. Your trusted source for actionable insights on leadership, communication, and innovation. Get ready for Business Security Weekly. Stopping advanced threats requires knowing exactly what you're up against. ExtraHop Reveal X is the only solution that shows you not just where intruders are going, but where they've been. 90-day look back and complete network visibility across the data center, cloud, and device edge help security teams respond 84% faster with ExtraHop Reveal X network detection and response. Explore the interactive demo at securityweekly.com/ExtraHop.
Welcome to Business Security Weekly. This is episode number 215, recorded May 3rd, 2021. I am your host, Matt Alderman, here in a snowy Colorado. Yes, it is snowing. It's not Mother's Day in Colorado, therefore snow is still in the forecast. Joining me from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, fresh off vacation from Florida, is my co-host, Mr. Paul Asadorian.
Hey, Matt, good to be here.
Welcome back. How was Disney?
It was Disney. We ran from ride to ride to ride for most of the trip, which is good. I got a lot more exercise than I usually do at the day job, so it was good.
And joining remotely this week is my second co-host, Mr. Adrian Sanabria, who's filling in for Jason Albuquerque, who's on PTO.
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome back.
Happy to be here.
In a row.
Yeah, I enjoy this one.
Yeah, this one's going to be fun because a lot of the second segment in the Security Money comes from Enterprise Security Weekly News. So a lot of the stories will be similar there, I think.
Some cross-pollination.
Yes. Do you want to stay in the loop on all things Security Weekly? Visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe on your favorite podcast catcher, our YouTube channel, sign up for our mailing list, join our Discord server, and follow us on our newest live streaming platform, Twitch. Do you have a specific guest or topic that you want us to cover on one of the shows? Submit your suggestions for guests by visiting securityweekly.com/guests and completing the form. We review suggestions monthly and we'll reach out to you once reviewed. Keavney is president of Cybersecurity Collaboration Forum, a cyber risk alliance company. Graham is an entrepreneurial-minded team leader who brings a diverse set of skills and experience, from starting two businesses to leading teams in well-established companies or trailblazing in the incredibly fast-paced and pressure-filled private equity startup space. Graham loves working hard, building and leading teams, and elevating organizations. Graham, welcome to Business Security Weekly.
Good to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I was just counting. It's been 8 months in a day since the acquisition, or what was it, 8, 9, whatever it was, since the acquisition. And I was like, wait a minute, we haven't had Graham on yet to talk about the Cybersecurity Collaboration Forum. And so I wanted to bring you on today to kind of update the audience on what is the CSF, right? I want to talk about history, kind of where it came from. And then I really want to talk about the benefits of the CISO peer-to-peer networking environment. So let's start with a little history. Where does the forum come from?
Once upon a time, we were a live events business, and our focus until about 15 months ago, 14, wherever we are in the pandemic, was to bring CISOs and security executives together at the highest level, region by region. We were serving 16 communities at that point, traveling all over the country and bringing, groups of 15 to 50 executives together, kind of market to market, for networking, collaboration, problem solving with peers, and really doing it all in a way that was generated by the executives themselves. We are kind of the Switzerland of cybersecurity events, options, if you will. we don't have an agenda. We don't sell to CISOs and security executives. We listen and respond. And we do this, myself and my team have a long history of working in the security and technology space, bringing executives together and really focusing on what they care deeply about, what their initiatives are, what their struggles and their pain points are. We do it in a very safe environment, whether it's live or now virtual. And we do it in a way that delivers basically what they ask us to deliver back to them. So we were presented with a problem that CISOs are facing. We put that together on an agenda, and we bring a collaborative networking environment together where they can solve it peer to peer. And that's the genesis of our business, which is now about 3 years old, which is to really go back to the grassroots, the fundamental foundation of what we think and we hear that CISOs and executive leadership need to do, and that is to talk to their true peers without any agenda other than their own. So that's the root of it all. And then, of course, a year ago and change, we had to pivot very quickly to a virtual platform, and we've done that incredibly. It feels very incredibly successfully, faster, I think, than a lot of others in the marketplace, where we are still able to bring those CISOs together in a very meaningful way, in a safe environment, and in a manner that they are driving and leading the conversations with their collective peers.
So I imagine, these are regional events. I think all of us know of some of the other types of platforms that are out there, regionally focused around the country. Mm-hmm. But the agenda really comes from the executive, which means they're setting the topic. A vendor or somebody else isn't setting it for them.
Ever. Correct. That's absolutely correct. And it doesn't matter, the core of our business is regional, and we kept it regional even when we went virtual, because we will go back to live events, and we're not an event per se. We're more of it's a community. We foster community. We foster that connection that one has in there, whether it's Chicago or, across Tennessee, Houston, Dallas, and otherwise. There is a community element to it. And in many cases, the CISOs in one part of the country are facing different things than CISOs in another part of the country. And now, really, we are seeing that when organizations are going back to work environments, or they're not. I'm in Portland, Oregon. There's nobody going back to offices in Portland, Oregon with any kind of speed. So, we are regionally focused, but we also have national platforms, multi-day national conferences, some vertical, which we can touch on more in a moment. But it's really driven by the CISOs, and in each community, there's what we dub as a leadership board. It's a volunteer army of CISOs who get behind what the objectives and the mission of what we do, and that is to bring CISOs together, and they want to lead that community. They are the ones who are working directly with us, so that we understand what are the issues at hand, what are the topics that you want to address, who should address them with you, who's important to have this conversation, the thought leaders or the best practices, or I hear this company is doing great things, let's invite that CISO or that organization to be part of this conversation. So it's very, it's choreographed in a way that it's really driving the results that the CISOs are asking us to bring. And we're not the subject matter experts, they are.
Right. So when I think about, obviously you've got differences between regions, right? To your point, going back to work varies region to region. Are there common elements, though, that come out of that leadership board that are also covered? I imagine SolarWinds and supply chain was a huge topic earlier in the year. Are there some topics then that kind of straddle across all the regions that are part of the agenda?
Yeah, and because these are the senior most executives in security, they are very high-end leadership conversations in a lot of part. But you touched on SolarWinds. So the SolarWinds occurred 3 days before what we call Event Week. It's the third week of every month when most of our regional communities come together for our e-roundtable session every month. I think the news broke on Saturday or Sunday. We had 16 or 20 events lined up Tuesday to Thursday with a topic. Let's just say it was ransomware. And we got to Monday morning and said, nobody's going to come to this thing. Everybody's bogged down in the chaos that is this SolarWinds announcement. And we just pivoted. We reached out to a few of our board members and said, do we need to pivot? And what can we talk about with SolarWinds so that you all can come together and have a peer group to vet this through, to really understand what's going on? And everything pivoted in 15 minutes effectively. And those are the best conversations to that point that we'd had. Everyone showed up. Everyone needed to talk about SolarWinds with their peers, so they weren't living in a vacuum and on an island. And that's what we find ourselves doing. We pivot when necessary, when there's breaking news, when there's things, but there's the big global stuff too. Some of the conversations over the last few months that have gone, we've gotten exceptional feedback. Reimagining remote work, of course, evaluating cloud security, and the strategy moving into 2021. Of course, data privacy, ransomware, phishing, and things like that. So they're very high level, kind of universal and global topics in some cases. And then in others, you know what, this is happening to us right here, right now, and we'll make that happen.
You said third week of the month is basically when all the roundtables happen. So they kind of all concentrate in a regular schedule. What happens when we go back to physical? Do you keep them that third week, or will they kind of rotate them? Like, it's a little easier to pull everybody, I think, together virtually. Live probably gets a little harder.
Yeah, I mean, we'll obviously have more runway. So the nice thing is about having a consistent, third week of the month at 3:00 Eastern for Philadelphia, is that the executives know it and they've got it on their calendar planned out for the rest of the year effectively. But yeah, when we go back to live events, we'll have a different cadence and a different runway and a planning, and of course, and I don't see, and the leadership board that we communicate with on the regular don't see that necessarily it's going to be one or the other. There's a lot of value in knowing that there's an hour set aside every month that CISOs can get together with CISOs without getting on a plane, getting in a car, fighting traffic, fighting parking. Now, that's not to say that there's not incredible value in coming together for a meal and content at a live event and seeing people and seeing the new vendors and things like that. But there's such a value in knowing that there's an hour every month and it's consistent, and I know the quality. It's like going into a coffee shop with a name brand. I know that cup of coffee I order, whether it's here, or here, is going to be very consistent the same. I know I'm going to have a room full of my true peers as a CISO, where I can talk about the things that are the most important right now.
Now, you mentioned it. I'm going to go there now. Regions have interesting differences, but so do industries. So how do you start to look at the industry-specific problems and really bring the CISOs together from different industries together to work through common industry challenges?
The thing I love most about what I get to do and what our team does is that we do listen, and we can make things happen at the will of the CISO effectively when it's appropriate, and we can have the support and the infrastructure behind it. The example that ties exactly to your question, Matt, is end of last year, we had a handful of CISOs and security leaders. At that point, he was the CISO for Intermountain Health. He's now retired, but the former CISO of Intermountain Health and others came to us and said, I'm on the board in Salt Lake City. This is a great community and a great environment, but I'm in healthcare and we have specific issues that are my industry, our industry. Can we do? And he wasn't alone. That was the backbone and the foundation of what is now our healthcare security roundtable series. In any given market, there isn't necessarily in verticals, healthcare or manufacturing or supply chain, whatever it is, retail, where there's a critical mass to come together, whether it's even virtual or physical, 10, 15, 20 CISOs from an industry. But nationally, and we're in 25 cities, we will be by the end of the month in 25 unique communities and cities. We have a critical mass. And so we were able to leverage those healthcare executives from across the country. Now, the healthcare security events, roundtables meet 6 times bi-monthly. And so there's a great core of healthcare leaders, and that is an opportunity as we close out or move through this year and into next year, where the virtual component has a lot of staying power, because a couple things that we're working on, women in security leadership, right? And we've heard it from from many, many people. I don't have enough core women CISOs or women security leaders in this market, but you all have enough where we can have meaningful conversations about these topics that are important to us and elevating women leaders and things like that. Again, healthcare security is a big staying point for us. We've been approached by manufacturing, oil and gas, critical infrastructure, retail. We're now working on a program for roughly the 500 largest organizations in North America that will come together for, talking about true peers, right? The $10 billion plus organizations have unique issues that a $250 million organization doesn't. End of story. So let's bring that community together as well. And so there's kind of endless opportunity to do this when we're in an environment like we are now, and will continue to be.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is you have this great critical mass of CISOs across the country. You can slice and dice them a few different ways. Industry obviously is one, but to your point, size, right? The JP Morgans and Chases of the world, and the very large Fortune 500-ish like companies, they face challenges sometimes at a different level. They also have a different level of maturity compared to maybe a smaller company, and the ability for them to kind of segregate into areas that they can focus on and help each other, I think is one of the real benefits of the forums, is that collaboration piece and finding kind of your right peers.
Yeah. And the cool thing is we don't do anything in a vacuum where we think it's a good idea. Me or anybody affiliated with our team, we may think we have a great idea, but if it doesn't fly, if the CISOs aren't asking for it, we're not going to do it, regardless of what the other end says. We're just simply, we work so hard to give that service of that level of service to the CISO community of, this is what we're asking for. And we're fortunate enough to be able, in many cases, to deliver and execute on that, because that's our business model, and it starts and ends with that. So if it's 500 largest organizations, or the manufacturing or oil and gas, we'll put a timeline to it, see if it makes sense, and if there's a critical mass in our ecosystem to execute on that, we absolutely can and will.
Graham, it's interesting. It's we've tried to do this in the hacker community, and we've always had 2,600 meetings, probably some of the first ones. There was some really early hacker conferences, right? In groups, we have the DEF CON groups. And I think we have a lot of local groups here in Rhode Island, for example. But I think one of the common challenges across all those groups is maintaining engagement with all of the members. And your members sound like they're really involved, but that relies upon the fact that you're engaging with them, they're engaged with you, and you're engaged with them. Like, what are your kind of tips for folks that want to create groups or foster communications like that to maintain that engagement from the audience?
Well, I think the biggest thing that we always fall back on is relationships, right? There's an inherent lack of trust built into any outreach. If I call a CISO tomorrow that doesn't know me or Cybersecurity Collaboration Forum and say, hey, come join this community of your peers, inevitably there's a skepticism, right? But ultimately the outcome is, this is what we promise, this is what we deliver. And that kind of funnels through all of the way that we go about the business. We have sponsor involvement in our communities. The sponsors are not driving the content. They are there to participate, to hear the issues that the CISOs are having, and to be able to react, because they are now kind of in this inner circle. So I believe that so strongly that it's all about, it starts and ends with relationships. The engagement part, which I've said 1,000 times, anybody who will listen to me, that's been to me the absolute silver lining of the pandemic. Right? We were a physical events company. We shut down, a number of one-day conferences we were set up to do just a handful of weeks and months out from March, when we closed business effectively and had to remodel. But those are great events when they occur, and they will always be great events when we build and back to live events. But those were once a year. So we had this great single day event planned in Nashville, another one in St. Louis, another one in Cleveland, and all this build and all this conversation, we weren't able to to have the meaningful peer-to-peer exchange up until that date. So then June rolls around, we have this great conference, and then we say, all right, see you next year. We now meet every month with these CISO communities. So engagement, I mean, that's why they're invested in it, because we continually bring their peers together, solve the problems that are the top of mind this month, right now, and deliver in a very consistent way. And then when we do other things like the healthcare security, there's a blueprint for it. They then have this inherent trust with our organization that they're going to have healthcare, CISO, and security peers in that room without any skepticism or otherwise. So it's been the biggest thing for our team, is that, our business is predicated on relationships. We've been able to foster those relationships so much stronger by doing this every month and continuing to, for the last year and 14 months. So
it's trust with the right people and the right content.
Yeah.
Sounds like your recipe.
And then not breaking that trust in any way, shape, or form, right? Yeah. We're not going to sell to the CISOs. We won't. We're not going to, they're not going to be on some, massive, expansive vendor or internal mailing list. We're not going to add to the spam that they already have. I mean, whatever it is, we don't do it. And they know that they can be part of this community, and it's going to be there for them, as opposed to, leveraging them for personal, our gain.
Well, I imagine, Graham, that privacy is pretty important too. And in my experience, a lot of CISOs, like you couldn't get them to, tough to get them at a public event, in front of a crowd or something like that, but the moment you say Chatham House rules, you can't shut them up. Like they desperately need to talk to people about some of this stuff. They need to get it out. They need to discuss it. But at the same time, they don't want to, they don't want or need their security strategies just out there in the public for everyone.
Right. No, we are very operational in the Chatham House rules mentality. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. It's all of those things. We don't have press. I mean, even though Cyber Risk Alliance as an organization is a media company, we're not translating that to being on, leveraging that information or knowledge to in any way, shape, or form. So it's a closed door. It's a private event. It's a safe sanctuary. The sponsors that are in the room understand that and follow those rules, and they have they don't get invited back if they kind of break that trust, and that's the playing field that we play on.
Yeah, and I think it's this separation of this community, right, from everything else that allows it to gain the trust and the traction that it has, because you're not selling to them. You're not trying to sell their contact information to, X number of vendors or sponsors or whatever it is. You keep a very good separation from those CISOs to everybody else, which I think is important to build that trust.
Mm-hmm. I mean, listen, there's a lot of other options out there for CISOs, and there's a lot of other events, and that's great, and they all have their inherent value, but at the end of the day, if there's an MO that is not in the best interest of the CISOs, it's just a different conversation, right? And that's our fundamental, at the core of it all. We work for, they may not pay our bills, but we work for the CISO, and everything else is secondary to that. And when we have that mentality and that approach to it, it always works out for the better, for that community engagement, for that CISO trust, and we'll continue to be that organization.
That's great. Now, you said 25 cities by the end of the month. So
yeah,
where are the different regional activities going? Because I think there will be some CISOs listening to this saying, well, is there somebody in my region? How can I get engaged? Kind of tell us where these different locations are. And then also, if there are CISOs, what's like the criteria for potentially joining one of these regions?
Sure. I mean, just a snapshot. The last 4 markets that we've launched in the last 60 days: New York, New Jersey, Atlanta, the Carolinas, and Oklahoma. Those are the new entries into the portfolio. Denver, Boston, and Seattle are on the docket for May and June. But that's a fraction. We're literally coast to coast. 3 markets in Texas, in San Antonio, Dallas, and Houston, each have their unique communities, their own independent conversations and things like that. So the website is the best way to see where all of the places we are, including the healthcare security and upcoming events. It's cybersecuritycollaboration.com. It's what we live and breathe, cybersecurity collaboration. That has the whole list of communities and regions. And then being in the virtual space, it's not necessarily predicated on, at this point, you can always drive or travel to a live event, but if you're in Omaha, Nebraska, we're not in Nebraska, right? But we've got events in and around. And join any community, right? A CISO conversation is a CISO conversation. We actually encourage, and many of the CISOs that are in a current market with us will pop in because the conversation's good, and their focus this month is so much about ransomware and phishing and getting best practices that they'll jump into the Chicago, but they'll hop onto the next hour in Detroit or Southern California, and so kind of knowing that it's always a service. If you're not in Portland, Oregon, and have an event in your backyard, but so it's kind of limitless, really. But when we get to live events, that kind of changes the contour of the event schedule and demographics and things. But to get involved, typically these are large organizations, CISOs or senior most security executives, and it doesn't have to be the CISO title. We have a number of CIOs that participate, chief risk officers, chief privacy officers. So really, that senior most executive that's focused and prioritizing cybersecurity in their world of organizations of roughly 250 million plus. That's our standard, I guess, criteria for participation, so that when the executives are in the room, it is a true peer-to-peer exchange. And then there's government. We work with government agencies, higher ed, nonprofits, large nonprofits, and things like that, of course. So,
got it. And then I think there's like an application or something they have to fill out, right, to kind of get to join or get affiliated with one of the regions.
Yeah, so through the website, the Cybersecurity Collaboration Forum.com, it'll say the language is apply to participate. That is just to make sure that, again, those who are coming into the room and coming into these private conversations are the senior most executives in cybersecurity in the organization. They're not the vendors, the sponsors that we do have are handpicked, they're vetted, all of those things. So we don't, it's a single sponsorship or single vendor opportunity. So it's a vetting process to make sure that the conversation is going to be at the true highest level when it's all said and done. That said, really the engagement starts and ends so much with the leadership board. We consider everyone that attends someone that should be on our leadership board, because we want the feedback. It shouldn't be a casual drop in and see if this is an event for me. If there's that level of investment, if this is for you, then make it for you by telling us what you want it to be and helping us steer the next round of conversations. And we can go through all of that with any CISO who's listening who wants to learn more about the leadership board. It's a minimal commitment. It's very easy to join. We just ask of you that you tell us what's important to you and share that with our group, and so that we can cater our conversations to what's critical and timely.
Sounds pretty easy. If I want to participate, I apply. If I've got things I want covered, I speak up, and voila, there's the content.
Yeah. And each of our communities is hand run by an executive director on my team that knows their community inside and out. They've been working with them in some cases for almost a decade, through obviously not all with our organization, but the Chicago cybersecurity community and our executive director, Scott, who runs that program, they've been working with him for nearly a decade through his career. And so it's truly a relationship business that we're in.
That's great. Paul, Adrian, any additional questions for Graham while we have him?
No, I'm good.
I was going to say, if you want to start one in Knoxville, let me know.
Well, we're actually, the Tennessee group incorporates the whole state. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, we have folks from. we've been to Nashville when we were live events, but we have Knoxville participants, Nashville, Memphis, all up and down. So, or east and west, I guess, is Tennessee.
That's good to know. I'm heavily involved in all the local community stuff here in Knoxville and East
Terrific.
Tennessee. Yeah.
Well, our doors are open.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Graham, thank you so much for joining us on Business Security Weekly.
Totally a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, was a pleasure. We're going to take a quick break and then update you on the Security Weekly 25 Index.